Life is difficult. This is a great truth, one of the greatest truths. Yet once we truly see this truth, we transcend it. Once we truly know that life is difficult, once we truly understand and accept it, then life is no longer difficult. Because once it is accepted, the fact that life is difficult no longer matters.
In the following AudioWorks presentation, Dr. Scott Peck will read from his best-selling book, The Road Less Traveled. A Harvard graduate, Dr. Peck was formerly a practicing psychiatrist and medical director of the New Milford Hospital Mental Health Clinic. He now devotes over 200 days a year to speaking and conducting workshops on psychospiritual issues. His other best-selling books include People of the Lie and What Return Can I Make? Dr. Peck.
Life is a series of problems. Discipline is the basic set of tools we require to solve life's problems. Without discipline, we can solve nothing. With total discipline, we can solve all problems. What makes life difficult is that solving problems is painful. Problems evoke in us frustration or grief or sadness or loneliness or guilt or regret or anger or fear or anxiety or anguish or despair. These are uncomfortable feelings, sometimes equaling the very worst kind of physical pain. And since life poses an endless series of problems, life is full of pain as well as joy. Yet it is in meeting and solving problems that life has its meaning. Problems are the cutting edge that distinguishes between success and failure. Problems call forth our courage and our wisdom. Indeed, they create our courage and our wisdom. It is only because of problems that we grow mentally and spiritually. Wise people learn not to dread, but actually to welcome problems and the pain of problems. Most of us are not so wise. Fearing the pain involved, almost all of us attempt to avoid problems. This tendency to avoid problems and the emotional suffering inherent in them is the primary psychological basis of all mental illness. Since most of us have this tendency to a greater or lesser degree, most of us are mentally ill to a greater or lesser degree. Some of us will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid our problems and the suffering they cause, building the most elaborate fantasies in which to live, sometimes to the total exclusion of reality. In the words of Carl Jung, neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. But the substitute itself ultimately becomes more painful than the legitimate suffering it was designed to avoid. The neurosis itself becomes the biggest problem. True to form, many will then attempt to avoid this pain and this problem in turn, building layer upon layer of neurosis. When we avoid the legitimate suffering that results from dealing with problems, we also avoid the growth that problems demand from us. In chronic mental illness, we stop growing. We become stuck, and without healing, the human spirit begins to shrivel. Therefore, let us inculcate in ourselves and in our children the means of achieving mental and spiritual health. Let us teach ourselves and our children the need to face problems directly and to experience the pain involved. I have stated that discipline is the basic set of tools we require to solve life's problems. When we teach ourselves and our children discipline, we are teaching them and ourselves how to suffer and also how to grow. What are these tools I call discipline? There are four: delaying of gratification, acceptance of responsibility, dedication to truth, and balancing. These are simple tools, and almost all children are adept in their use by the age of 10. Yet presidents and kings will often forget to use them, to their downfall. The problem lies in the will to use them, for they are tools with which pain is confronted rather than avoided. And if one seeks to avoid legitimate suffering, then one will avoid the use of these tools. First, I want to talk about delaying gratification. Not too long ago, a 30-year-old financial analyst was complaining to me about her tendency to procrastinate in her job. Finally, one day, we dared to look at the obvious. "Do you like cake?" I asked her. She replied that she did. "Which part of the cake do you like better?" I went on, "the cake or the frosting?" "Oh, the frosting," she responded enthusiastically. "And how do you eat a piece of cake?" I inquired. "I eat the frosting first, of course," she replied. From her cake-eating habits, we went on to examine her work habits, and discovered that on any given workday she would devote the first hour to the more gratifying half of her work, and the remaining 6 hours getting around to the objectionable remainder. I suggested that if she were to force herself to accomplish the unpleasant part during the first hour, she would then be free to enjoy the other 6. It seemed to me, I said, that 1 hour of pain, followed by 6 of pleasure, was preferable to 1 hour of pleasure, followed by 6 of pain. She agreed, and being basically a person of strong will, she no longer procrastinates. Delaying gratification is a process of scheduling the pain and pleasure of life to enhance the pleasure by experiencing the pain first and getting it over with. It is the only decent way to live. This process of scheduling is learned by most children quite early in life. Throughout grammar school, this capacity to delay gratification is daily exercised through the performance of homework. By the age of 12, some children are already able to sit down without prompting and complete their homework before they watch television. By the age of 15 or 16, such behavior is considered normal. However, some 15 or 16-year-olds seem to have hardly developed this capacity to delay gratification. Some seem to lack the capacity entirely. These are the problem students. Despite average or better intelligence, their grades are poor simply because they do not work. They skip classes or skip school entirely, and their impulsiveness spills over into their social life. They get into frequent fights. They become involved with drugs. They get in trouble with the police. Play now, pay later is their motto. So the psychologists and psychotherapists are called in. But most of the time it seems too late. These adolescents resent any attempt to intervene in their lifestyle of impulsiveness. And even when this resentment can be overcome by friendliness and a non-judgmental attitude, their impulsiveness precludes their participation in psychotherapy in any meaningful way. They miss their appointments. They avoid all the painful issues. So usually these children drop out of school, only to continue a pattern of failure that frequently lands them in disastrous marriages, in accidents, in psychiatric hospitals, or in jail. Why is this? Why do a majority develop a capacity to delay gratification, while a substantial minority fail? Most of the signs point to the quality of parenting as the determinant. It is not that the homes of these unself-disciplined children are lacking in parental discipline of a sort. More often than not, these children are punished frequently and severely, slapped, punched, kicked, beaten, and whipped for even minor infractions. But this discipline is meaningless because it is undisciplined discipline. The parents themselves are unself-disciplined and therefore serve as undisciplined role models for their children. They are the do as I say, not as I do parents. They may frequently get drunk in front of their children. They may fight in front of the children without restraint or rationality. They may be slovenly. They make promises they don't keep. Their own lives are in disorder, and their attempts to order the lives of their children, therefore, make little sense to these children. If father beats up mother regularly, what sense does it make to a boy when he's told to control his temper? When parents do things a certain way, it seems to the young child the way that they should be done. If a child sees his parents behaving with self-discipline, restraint, and dignity, then the child will come to feel that this is the way to live. If a child sees his parents living without self-restraint or self-discipline, then he will believe that that is the way to live. Yet even more important than role modeling is love. For even in chaotic homes, genuine love is occasionally present, and from such homes may come self-disciplined children. And not infrequently, parents who are professional people, doctors, lawyers, clubwomen, and philanthropists, who lead lives of strict order and decorum, but lack love, send children into the world who are as undisciplined and destructive as any child from an impoverished and chaotic home.